Hi, gorgeous women, Satnam. It's me, Shakti Sundari, and I am called to make this live stream right now to speak about the importance for us, particularly as women and holders of the divine feminine life current, of emotional vulnerability. So this came up for me as a lesson and a reminder that it's very important for me to know and also to share because of an experience that I had this weekend. So I wrote about it on my personal page, I think, and shared there about what happened. But in brief, I had a very beautiful, romantic, sexual, conscious, tantric, magnetic encounter with the divine masculine at a party this weekend, and it was one of the most beautiful, exquisite experiences I've had in a long time of connection with a man. I've been single for 15 months since my previous relationship that I ended was actually abusive. It was with a narcissist, and I've taken some time out to really heal myself and take all the lessons from that as I've gone forward on my path. And this was the first time that I met and opened to a man. We didn't have full sex or anything like that, but there was an opening in me to him, and it was very, very beautiful and very honoring and very profound, and just gorgeous to be seen and felt and held as a woman by a real man. And so at the end of this, it was just an evening really and a morning that we were together, a very short time. But in that time we connected very powerfully and profoundly and magically. And as it came for us to say goodbye, he shared with me that he didn't want to stay in touch because he was looking for a woman to have kids with. And in the moment that he told me that, my heart really dropped, and I felt surprise, maybe even a bit of shock actually, sadness, disappointment. I felt my attachment to him from the heart through the sharing that we'd had and sleeping together, not sex, but sleeping together in the same bed and being intimate in gentle ways. And I didn't articulate all of that to him. I articulated some stuff, I'm normally very good at identifying what's happening for me and articulating that to the other. But for some reasons that I've since meditated upon, I wasn't able to convey to him in that moment the depth of the impact of those words upon me, having shared so much intimacy and love and care and romance and truth and sensuality together. And I came away from that and, allowed myself to feel all that I was feeling and to process it, which I've been doing, and it's been very beautiful. It's really opened my heart in a gorgeous way, like this deeper opening in my heart to even more love and sensitivity and connection with life and with everything. So it's really beautiful. I'm just going to put my glasses on. Okay, listening. Yeah. And I was asking myself, why wasn't I able to articulate that sadness and that disappointment in that moment? Not to manipulate anything, because I'm not about that at all. And I know that with him, that would not have made a difference anyway, because he was a man in his truth. He was being true to himself and honoring himself and speaking his truth clearly to me, and I so appreciate that. I'm not about playing games, and for all of us, and the invitation to step into our fullness as sovereign women, we are not here to play games with our sexuality or with our hearts or with our bodies. We're here to really step into owning our experience fully and taking responsibility for it. So there is no blame from me to him about what happened. I went into it knowingly, consciously, so did he. We communicated all the way through. And, it was a divine flow and a magical encounter. I wasn't to know, and I didn't ask what he was looking for, and neither, it went both ways. We were just flowing with the connection and the spark of divine love and attraction that was there. So there is no blame. But to come back to that point then of me not sharing how I felt in that moment, the reasons why I was not able to, or that stopped in me, and I was questioning that, and I came away with a few of the reasons, understanding a few of the reasons, which maybe they are important, maybe they're not, they'll be different for everybody, but the learning for me is, and that is one of the great gifts of this experience, is never, ever, ever withhold the truth of my vulnerable feelings from the man that I am with. Never. I have spent years being able to show my vulnerability to the masculine, to my partners, and always I've had this very strong conditioning that it's not okay to be vulnerable, and it's not okay to show my weakness, and it's not okay to show my shadow. In fact, we cannot truly be intimate or in relationship or in authentic tantric conscious connection with one another if we are not fully, as women, embodying and owning our truth and able to articulate it to our partner. And particularly the capacity to be in our hearts and speak our vulnerable truth is so crucial to meet the man, and for him to feel us, to speak from that vulnerable place, not a blaming place, not an angry place, not a harsh place, not a closed off place, but a soft, open, surrendered, feeling, heartful, vulnerable place. That is the place from which we can reach him. And again, I say not to manipulate him in any way, but he will then feel the truth of us and the integrity of us and our standing in our feminine. And I think this is so important because there is this conditioning, and I have lived it and I'm still unraveling it, of not being able to show my vulnerability to the man and feeling that he's going to, a fear of being judged, a fear of being considered weak, a fear of him pulling away from what might be perceived. And I think this was part of my fear, being perceived as needy, being perceived as over-attached, him wanting me to be okay with, okay, well, we're doing this consciously and now we're disengaging consciously and it's all fine. Well, actually, it was fine, and I was feeling sadness. I was feeling disappointment. My heart was feeling a little broken because I had open to him. And when we open to another, of course we will experience attachment, of course we will experience heart connection, and of course it is natural that then if that is not to continue, we will feel a little bit of a pain, a little bit of a discomfort of that letting go of the connection that's been forged. That is healthy, that is normal, that is natural, particularly if, like me, and like you, I am sure you are doing the work to connect more with your feminine. Then you will be more sensitive, you will be more open, you will be more feeling in your heart. And so this is so important that we learn the skill, that we practice the skill of connecting to our embodied truth and our heart's truth, and being able to speak it, even if that feels really hard, even if we're going to cry. And I am sometimes, if I don't know a man very well, and I didn't know him well, I'd only spent a night with him, I'm quite shy about crying in front of a man that I don't know. If it's a man that I do know and I feel completely safe, it's different. But with a man I don't know, I guess I have some fears and some boundaries, or no, more fears about being seen in my tears, being seen in my vulnerability, being perceived as needy or insecure or over-attached. So those are my fears. And actually, though, the biggest gift I could have given him in that moment was my truth, and I held that part of it back. I expressed the beauty. I gave gratitude to him for what we had shared, and that was also true. And I cried at something else, but I didn't share with him the truth of my pain and my heartbreak and my sense of loss and my disappointment. And so this came through to me very clearly, that was one of my learnings from this, never to do that again, and to continue challenging myself to practice this, being able to be fully open and fully vulnerable and seen in that by the other, and not necessarily a romantic or sexual partner, but any other, because when we are able to be truly that, you know, there can be no conflict, there can be no disconnect, there can be no charge if we're truly open in the vulnerable honesty and the integrity of what we are feeling. And this is what is such a powerful part of the feminine, to own this. And yes, out in the world, that is still sometimes perceived as not a strength, as, you know, we have been conditioned to shut that part of ourselves down, men and women. But women, I want to say, this feeling heart is a crucial part of the awakening in the world, that we are reconnected to this, and by reconnecting to this, we are then able to reconnect others to this. The heart space, it feels, we feel, we love, we connect. This is so important, and being able to be vulnerable is so important in our communication. Now, just one proviso, of course, in a way that feels safe to you and in a context that feels safe to you. Maybe there are some situations where it is not appropriate or where you do not feel safe. But from now on, I've been thinking, how can I... there was another thing that I noticed and remembered, was because that last relationship that I was in was abusive, and so although I have become very good at identifying what I'm feeling and sensing and communicating it, what happened in that previous relationship was he would shout at me and become abusive if I shared any negative, in inverted commas, emotion. Okay, so that was his issue, not mine, but it kind of put a pattern back in me of shutting myself down and not speaking my truth. So I realized I need to do more of that again now. So I've been thinking, how can I recultivate that in me? And I'm thinking of maybe going to some heart circling circles, which is a beautiful practice where you sit in circle with other men and women and you connect with your embodied truth and you speak the embodied truth of your knowing and experiencing in this moment. And it's a practice. It's, in a way, this is what Tantra is, but it's a great way to get used to showing up in your truth, in your vulnerability, and in your full feeling self. So I'm hoping this is really useful. And if you have any questions as well, I'll be very happy to answer them if you post them below. I just think it just felt like I had to share this with this group. It's really important for us to have this dialogue and to have this understanding. You know, this is one of the key things I learned from my teacher, Shakti Milan. It's something we'll cover in the part of the Awakening Shakti program, the online program I'm going to be launching in January, about your relationship with the masculine. And I always remember Shakti Milan saying to me, when you have the dialogue with him, speak from your open, vulnerable heart, and then he will hear you. Okay. This is my message. This is my sharing for today. Please, please, please post your own comments, feedback, questions. I'm very happy to engage in dialogue with you about this, and I hope this has been useful and helpful in some way. Satnam, gorgeous ladies, and very much love from my heart, which is feeling so much today, and it's very beautiful. Much love and Satnam.